The beautiful thing about programming is there's more than one way to solve a problem. We're going to take that same problem in the last video and do it completely differently. So we're going to be able to pass information back and forth between pages. Let's go new. We're going to take swipe view and we're going to stick with pretty much the same design pattern. And again, I'm going to do this with 0 video edits, so you will see all of my mistakes, and there will probably be many, so be warned. All right, so this is 9.5. Next, and I'm just going to blast through all the defaults on that. Let's kill these others. So generally what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 pages. Doesn't matter if we kind of scroll through or we hit these little tabs, does the same thing. This one's going to allow us to edit, and then this one's going to have a label with a button, and when we click the button, it's going to change the label. The premise being we can go back and forth, and that information persists between the two. Let's go ahead and dive in and see what this looks like. So first things first, let's grab this guy, jump him up there, and let's grab a column. I'm going to just go through these interfaces as fast as possible. I'm not going to waste much of your time. And let's go right there. Let's grab a label. And let's grab a text field. Let's go ahead and click this column. Let's give it a spacing of 10. If you've skipped from previous videos into this one, you're probably going, whoa, whoa, slow down. I would highly encourage you to go back and watch the other videos. All right, so big takeaway from this is this must have an ID of some kind. And we can go into, and we'll save because this thing has betrayed us in the past. And I'm going to make a property. Let's call this name. And let's make this an alias. And this is going to be the text field. So we can actually just click this guy. Should have a beautiful property right there. It is. All right. As long as that's named appropriately and it's pointing to the right component, we're good to go. So let's go ahead and jump over to page 2. Page 2 is going to be slightly different but very similar. I'm going to grab this guy, go here, jump him up, drag drop a column. Just going to kind of finagle this. That's the actual term I'm going to use, finagle. Whoops. Always do that. I had the label selected and it always jumps it around. There we go. I would almost call that a design bug. So when you take something, watch down in the navigator here. I have the column selected. I'm going to drag and drop this label. You would think that because we just added that, it would select it, but no, it still has the column selected. It betrays us. So I'm going to take a button, drag, drop, boom. Now suddenly it's got the column and the label selected, even though the button's the one that I'm interested in because I just drag and dropped it. Little frustrating bug there, but it's not a huge deal. All right, so we can take this, snap him, take this, snap him. Let's put some spacing in here, just make it look beautiful. He's going to say, click me. And this guy's got to have some sort of label or some sort of ID. We're going to call that label. And I'm going to call this title right there. Now I'm going to do an inline function. IDE might get a little cranky on me, so I'm going to make sure I save my work. And here we're going to actually go up and we're going to manually add a property. And we're going to say alias, name, and this is going to be our label.text. So unclicked in that button, I'm going to say name equal hello world. Now when I click that button, it'll say hello world. So let's save run. Let's see what we got so far. So we can type in here and it will actually switch it around, and we can go here and click and it changes it to hello world. But now we want to be able to pass that information back and forth. Notice how we've got two different properties. All right, let's dive into our main here. And this is where it's going to get really, really confusing really, really fast. And you'll see me probably make some mistakes, even though I've already made some mistakes. But anyways, so first things first, we're going to give this an ID. Call this root. And let's make a property. Let's give it a default value. Now, what we want to do next is we want to actually comment these out. Now, doing so, we are saying that page 1 and page 2 do not exist. We're doing this for a specific reason. We want to actually take control of the creation process and set those properties ourselves. So we're going to do some property bindings. So I'm going to copy and paste a link in case anybody has any questions on this. So property value initialization is the actual link that I'm sitting out there. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to say property, and we're going to make this a var, and we're going to say page 1. Really what we're doing is we are effectively making a custom component, and we're going to create that as an empty object. So we have a variable named page 1. These brackets denote that we're creating. Those denote scope, which is the same thing as these brackets here. And that is what it looks like. A little bit confusing, and I wish they'd explain that a little better. I don't mean to come off like I'm complaining, but Qt's documentation is usually beautiful. It's some of the best documentation in the world, but with QML, it gets really, really confusing. So anyways, we've got a page 1 and a page 2. Now we're going to take full ownership and create these ourselves. So let's jump up here. And actually, I'm going to do it underneath. And what we're going to say is component. And we want to know onCompleted. So once the swipe view is loaded, we want to actually create some children here. So once we learn JavaScript, and I'm going to actually type this in here poorly. We can add functions, and it's much more efficient as a function. I haven't specifically covered JavaScript yet because I didn't want to start with, hey, let's learn QML, but first let's learn JavaScript. I wanted to actually introduce QML and a lot of its components before we start adding the complexity of JavaScript, even though we've used some basic JavaScript so far. We're going to call this component. I'm going to lowercase that. This is going to be component 1. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say Qt dot, and we're going to create component, and we need to give it a string. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go in and we're going to load this file and say load this into memory. So I'm going to right click, rename, and just grab that name, jump back into our main, paste.qml. So we're just giving it the file name. So really we're just saying Qt, go out here and load that file. Once we have that file, then we need to actually create it in memory. So we're going to say page 1 equals component dot, and we want to do a create object. And IntelliSense is not going to help us on this. So if you're a fast typer, you're going to have to suddenly slow down. So using Qt, you know that the fundamentals of Qt and memory management are you have a parent-child hierarchy, and this is no different. Under the hood, what's happening is some objects are being created in memory. We're literally saying create objects. So we're basically saying C++ new, meaning we're creating a pointer to something. So using Qt's memory management, we want to make sure it has a parent. So swipe view is going to be the parent. So when the swipe view is destroyed, this component is automatically destroyed with it, and so is the page, and so on and so on. All right, now that we have that, we are going to actually set our properties. So name equals, and then we want the root.name. And that's how we're passing that initial parameter. And actually, we're binding the property. So we're going to say component 2, page form 2, page 2. And then because we have them both named, it's very simple what we're doing there. We're just doing some property binding. And then let's go ahead, add item, and we want to add page 1 and page 2. Save and run. All right, if you've gotten to this point and you do not see these, well, you're in trouble, and I screwed something up. Let's see here. There we go. If you do not see these, you've screwed something up. Why is that? Oh, I know why. Or do I? Ah, yes, it's right here. See, this is component 1, so it's loading that. So if I just simply switch that to 2, there we go. Now it should work as expected. All right, again, if you get to this point and you do not see these two, that means you have failed in this area somewhere. And usually, 9 times out of 10, it's the actual name. Check the spelling. Once you see these, life can go on, and these function independently. See? Ta-da! Now what we need to do is wire those up. We're going to do that through, you guessed it, on current index change. So we're going to go here, and we're going to say on current index change, and then it's pretty much the same code that we had last time. So we're going to say console log, and we'll say current index so we know what's going on here. And I'm going to say if current index equals 0, and then I'm going to say root.name is going to be the page2 .name. It's a little bit backwards because we're going from the other page to the very first one. It's kind of like if we were swiping back, and we're going to say page1 .name equals root.name. So really we're just synchronizing the values. So it's not true property binding. We've got to do a little bit of hand holding here, otherwise Qt gets very, very confused. And then we're going to say page 2. And if everything's lined up the way it should be, then you should be good to go. Let's test this. So enter your name, Brian. Brian. We can test this by saying your full name. Swipe over, Brian Cairns. If I click this, it's going to change it to Hello World. And I can go back, and it's Hello World. So now we have two-way variable sharing. This is easy. Compared to other frameworks and languages, this is very, very straightforward. So some caveats and some takeaways here is we are not doing true property binding. True property binding, we wouldn't have to really worry about updating all this. It gets pretty complex, but I think we've got the bare basics of what you need to pass information around between different pages.